there's no rules in this bitch, okay? So we're gonna talk about whatever you want, whatever we want, because we're gonna spin it and let y'all know what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna give you rapid fire stuff. They're the coaches. I'm the everyday guy. I'm gonna challenge them because who the fuck are they to tell me what to do? They don't know me. They do know me. They know me for a really long time, but that's not the point. The point is we're here to give you guys a fun podcast, and hopefully you learn some shit along the way. Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Mindset U. This is episode 65. We're not counting the part 2 of last week's episode as its own episode, right?
Is this 65?
This is 65. Last one.
It was 65 last one, right? But we didn't hit record?
Yeah, but we didn't hit record, so it's 65.
So here we are doing it again.
Here we are doing it in person, much better this time. I'm Jason. We got Moses and Rances, who doesn't like using his last name, so we're just going to leave with first names. Today's episode...
Wait. We got to introduce the nicknames.
Oh, that's right.
This is Punchline J.
I'm Punchline J.
Mr. Robot. And I'm Moody Moe.
He's a little moody bitch. I love him to death, but that's my moody baby.
I don't think I'm that moody, but okay. I'll take it.
But you know, it was interesting because I was like, wait, no, you guys need your last name because you have such common names.
Your Perez is the most common last name.
Yeah, my last name, but my first name is not. So Rances can...
Yeah, but what Dominican name is not common?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was just, what Dominican name is not common? You guys take like... Yeah. What Dominican name is... What Dominican name... Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. What Dominican name is common?
My brother's name is Rafael.
It's like 1 in 100 million, bro.
Yeah.
Dominicans like to
Raphael and Hector,
make
and then
weird names.
Yeah, there's a bunch of syllables in it.
Yeah, you guys like take the first and last name of
Fucked
each.
up Scrabble words.
That's actually more so like millennial generation that does that. Dominican millennial generation that does that.
Yeah, I had a bunch of students with weird ass fucking names, man.
Well, sorry, not millennial generation. Wait.
Time out.
Yeah, like from millennial generation on, meaning like our age group, our names, the next generation, Z and Alpha are the ones. Before that, there were very like biblical based names and like very like Juana and Carmen and like very none.
I just want to point out that I was the one who got us off track today. It was Moody Moe. Because I was
trying to introduce names. Nicknames. We spoke about that.
It's true, but I always get accused of throwing things off track.
I don't accuse you.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying there's people who watch this show who happen to say that things get... If somebody starts talking for a real long time, I'll make a joke, and that I don't know how to process emotions. That's not true, because I know how to cry.
Oh, man.
Anyway, Punchline J here. Just throwing out the hits. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the emotions behind eating and stuff like that, because I'm about to go on a big diet for my next fight, and I got to lose about 15 to 20 pounds in like 3 months, and I got to do it smart. I got to do it right, and thankfully, VidaProject has the Bite by Bite program. I think I said that right. It's a mouthful to say. Bite by Bite, right? It sounds funny saying it out loud.
Sounds like an NSYNC song.
It does. Bite. Yeah, that makes sense. But the Bite by Bite program and all the wonders of it. So I would love for you guys to explain what the program is, because I'm not going to say it again. And then we could jump into me.
Well, I actually think we should go in the opposite direction. I think we should start with you and like your intention, and then we can kind of see how the way that our philosophy to nutrition and how we think about it kind of fits that, and yeah, we go from there.
All right, so this is me time, guys. Gather up. I'm gonna tell you a little story. My name's Jason Moreno. I like to box, and I'm gonna do my first amateur competition in September in Atlantic City. Currently about 168 pounds. I'm going to have to get down to like 153, 154 pounds.
There's an official weigh-in?
Yeah, there's an official weigh-in. I'm not sure if I have to weigh in twice each day because I know I'm gonna have to fight twice. But I do know that the division that I want to be in is around like the 153 division. Just for my size, I'm a short guy, and I think going to fighting like 165 or even heavier, I'm gonna put myself at a disadvantage because those dudes are like your size essentially. They're cutting down from 195, 200 pounds to make it to like 165, 170, and although I can take a good punch, I really don't feel like taking a lot of abuse for an amateur fight that I'm not getting paid for. So here I am, getting ready to stop my love affair with junk food, which I hold very close to me. I've already started a little bit weighing out my food and stuff like that, but now I'm going to get into the thick of things, and I think what really comes down to is being consistent. And that's something that you guys are very good at, is being consistent with your methods, with your ideologies and stuff like that. And that's why I come to you for help.
So to jump into, just to have the audience understand like what a weigh-in is, like what does that mean from the perspective of like in boxing?
Got it. Okay, so that's a good question. So a weigh-in means that I've agreed to fight at a certain weight. Because there's weight classes involved, because that's just the way fighting is. Having a weight class makes it technically like an even playing field for each person in the fight. So with the amateur fights and stuff like that, you weigh in the day of, which is a little bit different than like a pro fight or any other fights where you weigh in the day before and you get a chance to rehydrate and you can come in at way heavier. So for example, if I was to fight in a professional fight and I had to weigh 155, I'll weigh 155 Friday morning, and then I have a chance to rehydrate. And the minute I walk into that ring Saturday night, I could be 175 to, some people even weigh 180 pounds after they rehydrate, because it's all water weight at the end of the day. But I don't want to... The whole thing of starting early instead of waiting until, August or September is that I want to do this healthy. I don't want to do it where I'm just cutting a bunch of weight in an unhealthy manner, because it fucks with you. It fucks with your body. It fucks with your mental. And I'm trying to avoid all those things because I want to win. I want to put myself in the best position possible to achieve that. So I think that's what's also helpful of having a goal and just having a goal of like what I need to do. And I think that's a good basis for people who are looking to make that change, is set a goal for yourself and find out why you really want to do this. It'll make it a lot easier than just going on a whim like, I want to lose weight. Because that's fucking hard, and I don't feel like sometimes it's super tangible to achieve when you kind of just have this like willy-nilly way of being like, oh, I'm just going to lose weight because it's the summertime, where you don't have a reason why you want to do this aside from just bullshitting yourself.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So one, it's a true 155, 153 weight. So you're actually losing to be at 153, 155, and you're walking weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty hard. How much you weigh now?
I'm 168 right now.
Okay.
So ideally, what I'm thinking is, my whole thing is like the month out from the fight, I want to be like 158. Like going into like late August, early September, because the fight's September 16th and September 17th. So my goal is to be by like 160 to 158 by the end of August, early September.
Rances, when you say that's the peak a little too early?
Well, it's the premise that Jay said with him making that his walking around weight. So to me, like it changes like from that peak idea to like, all right, he just wants to hit this weight where he's able to just kind of maintain it, walking around, whatever. Like if he needed to, for example, he could lose another 5 or 10 pounds for the match. But it's more so like the whole concept of, remember, we used to talk a lot about 6 weeks out. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea of 6 weeks out is like, at the end of the 6 weeks is when you peak, but 6 weeks out is like where you really look at it as a target that you want to be in, where now you have the flexibility to like, cut down water weight or do X, Y, and Z differently. But 6 weeks is enough time to be able to make those adjustments. But if you are past that 6 weeks and you're not at that point of leverage of control of where that marker is. So the way I'm seeing what Jay is saying is like, he wants to be 6 weeks out on the day of training. So it's not like the most weight he could lose. It's not it's basically his normal walking around weight. He wants it to be at that point for his performance.
Yeah.
Is that?
No, that's true. Because I also want to train at that weight so I know what it feels like to be at that walking around weight, if that makes any sense. Because if I'm 6 weeks out, then I have that ability to see where I'm at and to really assess, what it's going to take to get down lower and to be like really honest with myself.
Well, I think the most important thing is, will you be able to perform at that weight? Because the power that you have now, are you going to be able to still access that power at 158 or 155 or 153? It's going to change. Yeah. And that's all dependent. Like now, my second question to you was, do you know what your current like fat percentage is, your muscle, how many pounds of muscle do you have?
I know my BMI was last time I checked was like a little over 18.
Yeah, so BMI is,
but I mean
it's a shitty measure because it's based on a European kind of body, calculation, and it's just different for Hispanics and African.
Yeah, I got some thick ass legs too, so it doesn't necessarily help.
So the real measure is really like fat percentage and also muscle.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Have you ever been at around 155?
College.
Okay, so that's a good indicator, because I'll give you a quick story with me. When I was training, my coach wanted me to go and fight in the 133 range, and my walking around weight at the time was 155. And when I started like trying to cut down in weight, my body hit 143 and wouldn't budge no matter what I did, like dehydrated, whatever. 143, my body was like, no. So like that's why the question of like, have you ever been this weight? Like, because your body may be like an extreme, right? To be like, I'm gonna walk around at 155, but if you have the history of like, yeah, I've been this weight before. Like,
it's the idea of homeostasis. Is like, does your nervous system know what it feels like and what it feels like to move and operate at that weight?
Yeah. So I think what I'm basing this mostly off of is the fact that like I'm really good at having a cheat meal. So I've never fully, even when I weighed like 155, I was eating like 2 Big Macs and a 20 piece, just because my metabolism was there and youth was on my side at that point. But ever since then, I've always, I eat whatever I want, and I've stayed at relatively, in the 170s, I guess. So I'm really trying to see what life is like eating clean for this entire summer, and seeing what that will naturally do to my body, and to see how I perform that way. Because the way I look at it is like, if I'm performing as well as I am right now, and I'm not exactly treating my body like a temple, I'm excited to see what I'm going to be able to do when I am truly, truly, truly taking care of myself and really analyzing what I'm eating, what I'm drinking, what I'm smoking. Not crack, but just pot. But even then, like even back in the day, I was smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. Like I was doing a lot of stuff that wasn't good for myself. So I'm interested to see where this is going to take me in the sense of like actually eating clean, really listening to my body, and seeing how that goes. And I think that's why I go back to like the analyzing where I'm at, and especially since you just told me that story of like when you got down to 143, like your body was like, "That's it, we're not going anywhere else." So I like to know, once I get to like 158, 157 kind of thing, how my body feels then. And if I gotta be realistic with myself, being like, "You're not gonna make 153." I'd rather know then and then be able to be like, hey guys, I'm not gonna be able to make this weight. Can we put me in this division then?
Mm-hmm. You weigh 165 right now?
168 right now.
168?
Yeah.
I would say, like, Rances, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think by July, if you can see and feel how you operate at 160, because that's going to be an indicator of, like, do you have room to move? Because that's where you're going to notice the performance.
Well, I will say this. In my last fight that I fought somebody that was like 45 pounds heavier than me, I got down to 165.
Okay.
But I did it unhealthy. I did like the week of kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's not going to help.
No, so it sucks. So it was one of those things I couldn't truly know. Well, there was two factors. One, I was fighting a heavyweight, a legit heavyweight, and I unhealthily cut weight. And I still performed well. I just fought stupid. Mm-hmm. And I think that had to do with a lot of the mental aspect of like, I feel like shit. Holy fuck, I can't move my legs. Let me just stand and bang with this fucking big guy.
Are you strength training?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, twice a week.
So there's a few points here where, like, kind of like what Mo said, like this is going to be a discovery journey. Like you have to lead with curiosity to see, because it's not just, hey, I'm doing this healthy, so now my performance is going to be maxed out.
Yeah.
There are going to be things that you gain, things that you lose, right? So like Mo brought up the power that comes with the weight. There's going to be loss of that, right? There might be loss of, because you're losing weight, the idea is, like we like to think in theory, we're losing fat only, right?
But you're not.
You're going to be losing muscle. So that muscle is going to impact performance. It's going to impact performance in terms of speed, in terms of power, in terms of just overall strength and endurance, right?
Yeah.
So it's like those markers are going to be changing. And like you said, you want to kind of walk around in this body, feel like what it feels like, what's the performance, can you modulate that? But if it becomes like an entire different body that you're driving and it's like, I don't know how to use this body this way, right? Then it's like, this is too risky. Like I'm going in, like everything that I count on is not here for me. So that changes like your parameters. So I think it's important to be like curious, and with that curiosity is like looking at those markers, looking at like, okay, what's my current strength and so on so field like, because and having like, maybe you have a partner that you're sparring with that's not going through a change, where that partner can give you feedback. Because it's like, you're like, oh, I feel so great. I'm hitting him so hard. And he was like, why you were taking it easy today? You were like just tapping me. And usually you hit me hard. You're like, what? You know, it's like, oh, shit. No. So then now you got to recalibrate.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing with the people who I train with, because it's such a wide range of weights. Like I'll move around with guys who are much heavier than me, guys who are a little bit lighter than me and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be good to gauge how hard I hit with if the bigger guys still feel the way I hit. And I think also with the smaller guys who before I would take a little bit easier on because there is a big weight difference. Now to see like if I can start pushing it once I'm closer to their weight and seeing how they react to it. Like, are they going to still give me the same respect because they know that if they step in and I throw something that's going to really fuck them up kind of thing, compared to not having to worry as much because now the playing field's a little bit more even. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what I'm really, really curious about. That's a really good point. I just want to, this whole thing for me is a lot about curiosity, which is a great thing that you mentioned. Because this is literally the biggest fuck around to find out I can do right now.
I do want to highlight a point. I think the reason I asked you if you're strength training is because that's going to be one of the most important variables to maintain your strength while you're dropping weight. And it's not just it's not just strength training, like especially in the beginning, like now. I think we spoke about it before in terms of calories, and we'll go into that conversation. But definitely functional strength training where you're lifting heavy so that you can generate power, because the power is the thing that's you're going to lose most. Yeah. So when you think about power, it's more of a neurological component. Mm-hmm. So like when we think about the strength itself, it's a skill. So you want to maintain that with like functional strength training. Yeah. So like you're looking at like deadlift, squats, right? You know, like the Man of Steel program that you've done. Yeah, I do all that. And trying to get it in at least 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah. Because mass is going to go down. So therefore, power is going to go down unless you generate that power from speed, right? And so you're lowering in weight, meaning your mass is smaller. But with that lowering in weight, if you can keep that performance of that muscle up, now you can increase speed. Which then can improve the power behind the punch because it's coming faster.
Yeah, so like a deadlift, if you're starting from the bottom and you're exploding up. Or the squat, you eccentrically lower, build that strength, and then explode up. That explosion is where you're going to be able to keep your power.
Yeah, and I think it also has to do with that too. And I think with the strength training, I've noticed that my technique of throwing punches and stuff like that, it comes from my legs. I'm always lifting. I'm always on my toes, and every time I throw a punch, I'm exploding up, kind of thing. So it allows me to be fast and to not have to wind up to hit somebody and to put real. So now I'm just putting momentum behind it, kind of thing. And
so what you're saying is that your skill in punching is already mechanically inclined. So it's not like a big guy, for example, that punches like this. Even though it looks like he's just doing this, he'll send you flying, but it's because of the mass that's behind that.
Exactly.
When you have the mechanical advantage, you're able to use whichever body mass you have, but leverage that to a point where it has the impact.
Yeah. I hardly ever plant my feet. Unless I have somebody hurt and they're in the corner, I might just like plant my feet to throw body shots and stuff like that. But for the most of the point, like I make it a constant effort to always be on my toes so I can use my legs to explode and not tire out my arms and not tire out my shoulders and stuff like that. Because I think I know this is inside baseball for you guys, and I'm sorry. And we'll move on.
So let's go into a little bit of your plan, because I'm curious to know how you're thinking about this. Just to give an idea of how people approach, a certain goal. So you have this goal, you have this intention, going to Atlantic City and boxing in an amateur fight. Yeah. That's the goal. What is your plan for? Let's start with the strength training, and then we'll go into the nutrition.
Okay. So that's good.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
The purpose of understanding that is because then the nutrition is designed to support. That plan.
Yeah. So right now, my strength training routine is I do strength training with one of my coaches at the gym, at least once or twice a week with him, and then I also lift on my own. But it's mostly just doing stuff that I learned with you guys. So it's a lot of like kettlebell exercises, like heavy kettlebell swings, stuff like that. A lot of stuff working out my legs and my core. I do a lot of body conditioning just to get my core strength better, because you need to be able to absorb punches. And I feel like if you have a really strong core, that helps. So I think I am going to start upping my lifting. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to start lifting super heavy, because that also does take away from the fighting aspect of it sometimes. So I try to lift like heavy, like once a week.
So I have a question that kind of goes to that point, is when you're boxing, how do you defend? Do you defend dodging or do you defend blocking?
It depends. It's a mix. It depends on who I'm fighting.
Okay.
My defense changes between opponents and stuff like that, because not every person's the same. So with somebody who's fast, I resort to more blocking and throwing counters and trying to time them. Now with somebody who's a little bit slower than me, it's more head movement and making them miss and stuff like that. And I'm capitalizing off of that. But it really depends. And also, if I respect your power more, I'm going to make sure I move my head around. I'm going to make sure that I'm not trying to to absorb too much into it, because even if I'm blocking, it still hurts. It still hurts, or they throw you off balance because they're so strong and they throw hard. That shot will throw you off, and then they can catch you with something else. And it's
as you're recovering,
as you're recovering, and the shots that you don't see are the shots that hurt the most. So it really it varies on who moving around with and who I'm fighting.
So I'll share this, that the reason why I asked that question is because, like, again, it's almost like a video game, right? You're toggling the different skill sets, right? And recognizing that, and then this goes, do you know who your opponent is and how does he fight and so on and so forth? Because like that strength training, that upper body strength training will also determine that. If you want to be faster, dodging more, then you don't necessarily want to have more mass that you're building up on top. But if you're using that mass as protection, then okay, you need that defense. So again, the strategy behind it goes into what you're building. Because like what you mentioned was like, you don't want to go into too heavy lifting upper body wise. Why? Because it's going to have an impact. But the impact that it can have, it can be endurance impact, right? So if that's a toggle that you want to keep up really high, that's important. On the flip side, it can have, again, that protection, which can conserve energy because you're just putting up the shield as opposed to having to use that endurance to dodge and weave and so on and so forth. So it's like the strategy on how you're going into the fight also depends on like what are you building with your body.
I typically don't lift super heavy upper body anymore. I do heavy on the legs because that's where my source of power comes from. So I do, like, I'm never going to stay away from doing, so like deadlifts and squats and stuff like that, I'll still lift heavy with those. But like when it came to like doing like the bench press or anything like that, like I do more reps.
So I would think right now is the best time to get that in.
Yeah.
Prior to when you get closer. So for if like we were your trainers, I think the plan would be, go heavy now, get the calories restriction to like something to build the power and strength to sustain the workout, but not so much that you're gaining the weight. So you're building the power, you're building the muscle, you're losing maybe a pound or half a pound per week. So that by the time you get to July, the middle of July, you're maybe like 160, 161. And then from there, shift the training to muscle endurance, skill set towards boxing, towards that. Then get the calorie restriction to be under 2,000. Maybe we're talking about like 1,800, high in protein to get you down to 155. So that way you might lose some power, but you're not going to lose a lot.
And the reasoning behind that, like starting now with that strength is because like, there's two points that contribute to what your body can do and what your body looks like. Like I mentioned before, the mass, right? You don't necessarily gain mass when you're doing strength. You gain strength. What that means is like it's literally a nervous system training that you're doing. Your brain body is learning how to elicit more muscle fibers when you're doing an interaction. So in a punch, you're gaining more of the muscle fibers that are already in there to contribute to this action. That's the strength buildup. So there can be no physical change, but an increase in strength, right?
That's what I would like.
Yeah. So like if you were going to go for the mass, right, then that would be a different protocol that you will follow. But now going for the strength, and Moses says like starting that now is like you can build this higher base of strength, which then when you start working and you're cutting back on calories and everything, and that strength starts to fall back a little bit, it started falling back from a higher peak.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think the hardest part for you, if you were to go into that now, is the dialing down the amount of times that you're sparring to allow for recovery. So I know that you go into like, a lot of sparring sessions. Like you'll go against like 8-9 guys in one. Like you would have to decrease that just a little bit to be able to let your body recover and focus on that power. Like if we're talking about time, if we're talking about energy and then recovery, if you really want to win that fight in September, the strength training starts now and you focus there. You focus on a lot more technique. You focus on the skill set of boxing and you try it out. You maintain those skills and implement them in sparring sessions. Yeah. But, light, we're talking about like 60% capacity.
Yeah.
And then in July, you start dialing up, decrease the strength training, increase muscle endurance, increase sparring, increase, more endurance to prepare yourself for the actual fight. I think that would allow you to get the peak at the right point.
I think that's a really, really good point. And I already started decreasing the amount of sparring I do. I try to keep it to just Sundays now. If I do any like sparring during the week, it's super, it's technical, it's touching. It's just figuring, just working on the mechanics and helping other guys get better at their footwork. Because the one thing I do have that's really good is my footwork. I'm really good at being bouncy. I'm really good at moving my feet the entire time. Mostly because I'm so used to sparring with dudes that are bigger than me. So like I have no choice but to move my feet to, one, be out of their range, and two, it's also a good thing of when you have a bigger guy who relies on their power, if you're constantly moving, you don't let them plant their feet. And the minute that they plant, like I'll play a little game kind of thing where it's a mental thing where it's guys chasing me. You guys chase me, he's chasing me. I'll stop, make him plant his feet, move again. So he never gets into a rhythm of knowing when he can plant and throw his power at me. So it's one of those things that I try to teach the other guys who are also on the smaller side on. These are things that they should utilize because not everything's a fight. I think a lot of guys come into this and they think it's a brawl. Mm-hmm. They think that you have to stand there and you have to be, the man way, I guess, is to plant your feet. Let's rock 'em, sock 'em, robot it, and see who's the tougher guy. Mm-hmm. And all you find out is that you have brain damage at the end of it. And it doesn't matter if you have 16-ounce gloves on, if you have headgear on. It doesn't matter. Your brain still rattles. It still messes up your day, and none of us are getting paid for this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a game of chess.
Yeah, it's treated like chess. It's not checkers, and that's what I'm excited for when it comes to lowering the sparring and focusing more on the strength training, the technique, because that plays such a big part in it. And I think a lot of people don't put that kind of work into it unless they're they really take fighting seriously. And I think with my ADHD, I have a thing of like, if I find something that I really, really like, I dive headfirst into it. Remember when I first started skateboarding? Did that not take over my life?
Yeah, it did.
Just look in my attic and see how many skateboards I have. I have 2 feet.
So to use that like baseline of like, okay, we understand the intention, right? So now how do we create a nutritional program that supports that progress? And that goes to everyone, right? Like we're talking about specifically here, someone who's engaging in a physical performance based activity, and that is the reasoning behind a nutritional change. But like what Jay said is like recognizing the why and the specifics of it all is a big factor, because when things get tough, when you had a stressful day and you want to have that thing that you had as a kid and to bring you satisfaction and comfort, that's when your reasons need to be strong enough to contest those innate reactions.
For example, last Monday, after our podcast, I had McDonald's.
So, I think the conversation we went into with the podcast that we didn't record was the idea of an identity, right? So the identity that you have, and this goes into our Bite by Bite program. We talk a lot about the identity that you want to create. In your case right now, it's this idea of a boxer that actually goes into more of a professional environment. So now there's an actual event with people and something on the line. Is there like, a medal, trophy?
If I know that it's possible that I could come back with a belt.
Okay.
And I really want that fucking.
So that's pretty cool, right? So now there's this identity that's created, this new version of Jay that we can foresee in the future with the belt. And I think that's really important, is to get the intention is like, who do I want to be? And then the struggle is, who am I currently now?
Yeah.
And what do I have to change to be this person?
So let's get into now what that nutritional program would look like.
Oh, wait. Well, real quick. First off, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can find us on all platforms where you can find a podcast, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and any other place that you can find podcasts. And also, the Bite by Bite program that we're about to dive into right now will be on the VidaProject website starting sometime in July. So look out for that, and you'll find out why you should look out for that right now.
Good segue.
Thank you.
So when we look at the intention first, like what are we trying to understand? What are we trying to build? That gives us now the North Star, right? That we're achieving with this plan. Now the variables that step in throughout that plan have to do with the tools and understandings that come up. So for example, that identity idea that Moses talked about is huge. That boils down into multiple levels of how these identities that we're either developing new identities or trying to get rid of old identities, right? These are beliefs about ourselves. How are we approaching those things and why? That's the motive. Once we understand that, we look at it as, hey, I want to change this because in your case, I want to be the champion. I want to have that feeling of like, yo, I did this, I went all the way, and so on and so forth. Now, if it's someone that wants to lose weight because they've been struggling with weight loss their entire lives and they want to make a change, it's easy to do some of the mechanical changes. It's harder to have an identity change of the person that you want to become.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
So there, and we've seen this happen where someone that is very overweight, and a lot of times, I don't want to put anyone in a box, but I've seen this happen as a coach repeatedly with people that undergo gastric bypass surgeries, where and there's multiple different ones that you can have. There's the gastric bypass is the full intensity. You change your entire system. But then there's things like the lap band, right, where they kind of use a device to constrict your stomach. And I see this psychological challenge happen from the identity perspective. Someone can lose a massive amount of weight and no longer recognize themselves and desperately want to repeat their previous patterns to the point that it makes them sick. There's a thing called dumping that happens to people where they are trying to eat the way they used to eat, and their physical body, like imagine that your body's saying, no, don't do this, stop. And your identity is so strong that it would override those sensations and you will continue to do that action. And what happens is that the dumping is that the body then reacts to that and it's nonstop diarrhea, vomiting, and just nonstop. So that identity shift is so big because if you're starting to create this version of yourself and you believe in that version, now you're coming into your own. You're coming into the person that you want to become, as opposed to losing the person that you think you are. And that's a different approach with nutrition. Like I was saying, was that I've seen people go through this process. This, like, you think about like the amount of work that goes into doing this process, right? It's not like hey, I woke up today, I'm gonna go get lap band. It's a process that requires a lot of moving parts. With those people, you get to this new version of themselves, and their mind, their psychology starts to fight what they're experiencing so much that they're desperately trying to become that other thing. And I've seen people, specifically with the lap band, lose all the weight for a year and then slowly start to increase. Even though they have the lap band, and the lap band can be adjusted externally by the doctors. Even with all of that, they're still able, their willpower to become that older version is so much stronger than all this mechanical changes that it would literally take them back to who they used to be. So I think it becomes a first and foremost understanding that you're changing your identity, and this identity that you're changing into, become comfortable with that.
And they're like, to piggyback off that, it's not just psychological, it's biological. Like, there's a huge physiological component to an identity. So for example, you're gonna go box and you're going to win. What's that going to feel like? Who does that version of Jay feel like when they actually win the match? So like go into that. Like, what are you going to experience if you do win? Like put yourself in that position.
That's a great question. I haven't even truly thought about that. I mean, part of me is like, oh, it's just another day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to treat it like, you know, like, oh yeah, I won, it's fine, you know. But another part of me is like, I fucking worked so fucking hard for this. This is all me, nobody else but me. I'm the fucking man. I did all this. I'm invincible, kind of thing. And it's a matter of like balancing those two egos, I guess, because once that's done, and it's like, all right, what are you gonna go back to fucking eating like an asshole again, or like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna go back up to 178 pounds, or you know?
But let's go more into the actual feeling. Like you imagine yourself, you're in that ring. Ref
it's
raises
emotional.
your hand. What is like your body experiencing in that moment?
It's like it's euphoria. It's a big fucking dopamine hit. Like I'll say it's probably going to be the best high I've ever felt, and now I'm going to want to chase that high because it's never going to feel the same as that moment.
Would you probably feel exhausted after the fight?
Oh yeah,
Exhausted.
I mean, it's a fight. Of course, I'm going to be exhausted because it's not going to unless I like dropped a guy within the first 20 seconds or some shit like that. I think that's another thing. I think I'm excited to be mean, and I think that's when it goes into the emotion thing. I think it's going to be such a release to be like, I can be nice again. I don't have to look at this person.
So you're gonna feel anger.
Oh, going into it, I want to feel anger, and not in the sense of like that. It's gonna cloud the way I fight, but I want to go into it where it's not like when I'm sparring with somebody now, where it's like, oh, like I'm respecting them. I don't want them to be hurt. I want to hurt them, and I want to know what that feels like.
To let the animal out of the cage.
Yeah, to truly let that animal out in a sanctioned way.
All right, so I'm going to stop you there. So that version of Jay is the identity that you're chasing, right? That's the one that you're trying to build. So there's a physiology to what that feels like. You can imagine it. Like, what does it feel to be free and release that animal out the cage?
Yeah, I think that's the one thing. You're right, because I've never fully done that before, unless it's like, you know, trying to defend myself in a situation or anything like that. But like, this is one that's like, we both know what it is. And
I don't have to be, I'm not hurting anyone on, like, it's not like this intentful malpractice kind of version of hurting somebody.
Yeah,
it's
so
like we both agreed to this. And
it's a different kind of animal, I feel like. It's not one that's like, I'm fighting for my life. Like, you know, if I have to kill this person kind of thing. I don't want to kill anybody, but I do want to put him on his ass, and I want him to not get up.
All right, so that's the identity you're chasing.
Yeah.
So if you come into a program like Rances or I coaching you, that's who we're chasing.
Yeah.
Okay, what are some of the things you're going to have to experience to become that version of yourself, to get to that point?
I think really pushing myself with keeping on this regimen, keeping on this diet, and skipping out on the food that I enjoy a lot of the times.
So describe some of the feelings. Like, what's the shit that you got to go through?
I think it's more so depriving myself of. I think we've had this conversation before where I view food as freedom, and I think being able to be like, I'm depriving myself of that freedom, I think is something that is going to help me, because it's like I sacrificed a lot for this.
So you got deprivation.
It's deprivation. It's I'm trying to think of other words. Like it sacrificed a lot of it. Deprivation.
Sacrifice is another one.
Sacrifice. Hard work. Like I love training. The actual idea of training, like that's the one thing. Like it's finally like being like, I put all this training that I'll train, 5-6 days out of the week for what? For just because I like it, just because it's my little sanctuary for me.
It's a reward.
It's a reward, So now it's like I get to see with all this hard work, we're now really gonna push myself. It's really one of those things. Like we've had this conversation before, and we've talked about this on one of the other podcasts, where it's like I don't have Jay can't quit. Jay can't back out of this now. Jay has to follow through. And it's something that I've never really done before, and I'm excited to follow through, and I'm excited to see the other side of that, of what that's actually like, where it's like, nope, there's no quitting, there's no excuses, there's no, but this one thing isn't gonna hurt. I gotta treat it like everything's gonna fucking hurt, like everything's gonna be taken away from me if I don't follow the game plan.
Okay, beautiful. So then, what are the things that are gonna get in the way of experiencing that?
Junk food.
I want to just use that same framework to identify the opposing possibility.
Okay.
You lose.
Yeah.
All of that work destroys you.
I don't think it will. I don't think that will. I don't.
Okay, but let's go through the same pattern of like identify what are the feelings, the sensations, because it's like I don't think that will. Why? Because I'm gonna make sure I push that reaction down, or is it like? Because the question then becomes like that identity, that thing that you're after. Mm-hmm. If you're okay, if you're like I don't think it would, it's not gonna have a deep impact on me if I don't. Then that thing that you're after is like, yeah, I'm after that, but I'm not losing anything if I don't achieve it. So then it becomes also that pain pleasure.
It has to be a huge anchor to be able to. Yeah.
No, so that's fair. So all right, so I'll put ego aside. It's gonna fucking crush me. It's gonna crush me, and I'm gonna cry in the shower for probably the following 2 weeks afterwards. I'm gonna continuously apologize to Ashley, and I'm gonna apologize to my dad and to anybody else who came out repeatedly. Because I even did it with my other fight. When
you got knocked out?
No, I didn't get knocked out. I didn't get knocked out. There's a big difference. I got dropped, and I got right back up. Stumbling, but I got right back up. I have...
Punchline Jay just took a punch.
I took a swift right hand.
Yeah.
That shit rocked my world. Never been hit as hard as I got hit that day. It was wild. But I think back to what you're saying, am I scared to lose? Of course I'm scared to lose. What's the point of doing this whole fucking thing? I'm like, oh, well, I could lose. No. The ego in me is like, fuck that. I'm going in there. I want to hurt him. There's no fucking way I'm going to lose. I'm going to take everything from him. And I'm going to take that fucking belt.
So now that's the goal. Now imagine going through the same scenario. At the end of the fight, your hand's not being held up. Your opponent's hand is being held up. Feel that for a moment.
I don't like it.
Because that is what you can attach to the identity of like, okay, when I have a choice, now you have 2 points of reference. It's okay, I can eat McDonald's. You need to attach that feeling that you just experienced to
play that fucking movie in your head.
That guilt. It's that guilt. It's like, I think I'm going to be Catholic for like for the fight camp, just so I can have that guilt in me where I'm like, oh, Jesus is watching me. Fuck. Can't do this. I'm going to go to hell if I don't do this fight camp perfectly. No, I think that's a really good. You just put me to a dark place just now. I don't know if you guys saw my eyes.
You do this thing where your jaw starts to move.
Yeah, I start clenching my jaw. Yeah.
But look, that's already starting to put the pillars for that identity you want to build, because that dark place is what you want to learn how to access on a regular basis in your preparation for this fight, so that it becomes home when you're in that ring in that moment.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a brand new experience that day. You need to train in that.
Yeah.
Because you hit a point where you spoke about ego, and it does play a role. So when we talk about, there's this concept called ego depletion, right? Where we talk about will. And originally, we even believed this, Rances and I. We thought that you had a certain amount of willpower, like it's almost like a skill. Current research or recent research says that there's no such thing. It's only the people that believe that they have a certain amount of will that they can sustain. That's called ego depletion. But if you believe that there's no such thing as will, what they found was that you're capable of doing anything, right? That there is no such thing. So when you talk about ego, you have to attach your ego to an idea of what it feels like to lose and to win. You have to attach the ego, for example, and we call this process called WOOP. That's what we were guiding you through. It's like there's a wish, there's an objective, there's an obstacle. You have to envision the tough shit that you have to go through, because that ego can only be held at the end and can only sustain itself if it's been through the physiology of pain. Because we only remember pain or pleasure, and we have to attach that discomfort to that identity so that, like you said, when you're done with this fight and you're done with this campaign and training, am I going to go back to that old version of Jay? Am I going to go back to eating shit? Are you willing to throw all the shit, pain, everything you did back down the drain?
No. No. I'm ready to run through a wall right now. I'm ready to... Oh, man. Yeah. No, I'm fired up right now.
So going back to like clients, people who just want to lose weight, I think a lot of the times what we encounter was that people don't do this work in the beginning. And even ourselves, like sometimes I fall victim to this as well.
It's human nature.
It's human nature. There's a lot of pre-work, envisioning, an understanding of your emotions to sustain a identity that you desire to become. And that's one of the things that we do in the program in Bite by Bite, is that a lot of that work, especially when you work with us as coaches, we actually do that process that we kind of ran you through right now.
Mm-hmm. And just to give you like a little bit of understanding behind that concept of WOOP, it was wish, objective, obstacle, plan, right? So like that's what we did. We said, what's the wish? What's the great outcome, right? That you see yourself and you're like, oh, my hands are being, that's the wish, that's the dream, right? The objective is winning, getting that belt, right? Then the obstacle is like fucking losing, right? So then what we do is we create a plan. So if these are the negative things that are going to show up, like, hey, you know what? It's okay, just one meal of McDonald's today. It's not going to break me. We just made a plan of like, when you look at that meal, you're going to envision that failure, right? So now we just made a plan on how you attack those situations.
You guys made me hate McDonald's already. I don't like it. I don't like it.
So, but that emotional association is now that you're using that leverage, because this thing is innate. It's happening within us. Like we have connections to food due to an emotional response to them that just happened. It was just programmed with us throughout our lives, through our experience, through our beliefs, through our stories that we were involved in. And we attach these emotions to those foods, which now, like I said, that scenario of like, you know, when you're having a rough day and you want to eat that food that makes you feel good, feel that home cooked meal, whatever it is, that is the emotion that you're pursuing. So this is the way that you are able to use that same neurology, that same psychology, and reset it and create a new belief system that allows you to now initiate the behaviors necessary for your success.
Yeah. I think in the wellness industry and fitness, you hear body, mind, and soul. And there's actually science behind that idea. You're going to be fighting the physiology of old Jay while trying to create the physiology of new Jay. And when you connect your mind to that identity is where the mind is created, where it's being created in the mind. The physiology is the body, so you have to train it to create that identity. And then the soul is the acceptance of the new version of that ego. And when you're gonna, like, for example, you said you smoke weed, and that's probably when the munchies come out and all that.
No more smoking before.
Understand that smoking is the trigger that brings the old version of Jay out and then creates the physiology that you are desiring. So then what happens is you smoke the weed, old version of Jay comes out, and it's like, yo, old version of Jay wants food. Yeah. He wants McDonald's. Mm-hmm. So then it's finding those triggers that create that physiology, which then is like, okay, I shouldn't smoke now because I know that it's going to trigger an old version of me. Therefore, let me not do this. Let me go out on a 3-mile run, create a new trigger.
So I got to intermittent fast my weed?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
So
no smoking after 7.
So like what Mo was saying is like there's basically you're going to be having a fight the whole way through.
Yeah.
It's new identity J fighting old identity J. And there might be some mourning happening in that experience.
Oh, totally.
Of like of loss, of like, this is who I used to be. Yeah. But the acceptance of letting that go, the intentionality behind it, letting that go, is where you find your power to make it through that mourning.
I think even more so is being aware of when you want to smoke weed, because what the weed actually does sometimes is masks that mourning.
Yeah.
This is like everything that we're talking about is the psychology where that like bite is based off of. That whole experience is first understanding that psychology, that emotional connection that we have to food. And with that, like, so just to give you a reference, that idea of WOOP comes from these researchers who were looking into, there's actually a married couple. One was doing a bunch of research about positive psychology. And the other one, and this is like unrelated, was doing research on like the impact and trauma of negative psychology and so on and so forth. And like over dinner, they were just talking about their research, and they were like, "Oh, I just found this anomaly in the research of like with positive psychology. There's this negativity that starts to be inbred in it." And the husband that was doing the negative things was like, you know, that's very interesting because I found this in the negative psychology, the trauma-based psychology. And they started looking at their work together, like actually went into the lab, started looking at, and they were like, oh, in order to create change, you need both. You need that positive and that negative. So that's where they eventually came up with the idea of WOOP. It's a studied thing where you need that positive thing and you need that negative. And then that's how success happens. And they've applied it. They created a whole system. There's actually a free app that they made called WOOP. You can find it on your store, and it's free, and it just walks you through the process if you ever want to do that. But it's the baseline of the nutritional change, because it is an identity change, and all those emotions tied to the food is how you make lasting, impactful changes.
I love all that. Now, question, when you guys put out the Bite program online, can the WOOP chapter be called WOOP There It Is? I've been thinking about that for like the last 15 minutes.
It's actually for your Punchline J, bro.
Thank you.
Punchline J.
Thank you.
Just to kind of piggyback off that, the program itself will be for free online. So this is the first time that Rances and I will put the program out. It's going to be on VidaProject.com for free. What we will be doing, and if you need more accountability, more help, or more of this type of work that you saw today, then that's where you can reach out to us for coaching. And we have certain resources and tools that we use to help you reach that new identity.
Yeah. And I mean, just follow me along on this journey because I'll be proof of it, essentially.
We
coming out of it.
The Bite program we created, when was it? 2020, 2021?
It was 2020. I think COVID was still out there. We were, it was 2020.
We created it then. We've been selling it for $600 since then. And we just made like a decision, like based off of our intention, our mission is like, we don't want to have this like only available for people who have a certain amount of income and so on and so forth. This is like our mission is to help people thrive in life. So that's why we're doing this. That's why we're putting this program out for free, accessible for everyone. We don't know how long we're going to do it. I don't think we're going to keep it forever, but we do want to be able to reach the people that we started this for.
Yeah, I think it's important that, I mean, this information is not new. This information has been around for thousands of years. I think what Rances and I, and even Evelyn, who is a part of the Bite program, what we did was we curated the information to be as simple as possible so that you can be successful. And I think that's what makes the program so special. So, I think it's just important that everybody has access to it and gets a fair opportunity to create change in their life. So
be the change you want to make in this world, and this is a good way of doing it. So
Word.
I agree.
So we talked about like that emotional concept behind creating that nutritional change. And for those of you who might be nervous about facing that, the whole idea behind that is that is how, again, how I said before, how permanent change happens. But it's not just that. It's also the information, the nutritional information okay, so I have this new identity. This new identity is an infant that doesn't know, okay, how do I choose this? How do I look this? So we go through that idea of like, again, we look at Jay when he was talking about like, okay, how do we want to affect performance? In which aspects of performance? Speed, power, strength. All of these things require different elements. So we look at that as well, and we're looking at that information and applying it for you to be able to say, okay, this is knowledgeable information, not just the emotional idea on how to implement this information, but actual information to make decisions from. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
I think so.
I don't know. I'm still contemplating. You guys
kind of like went out into a cloud and then came
the reason
back
why
in.
I asked if that made sense at the end was because I was starting to get that thing, which I've been doing really good. I'm really impressed with myself.
Actually, yeah, you have been really good this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you got some life back.
Yeah.
I feel like that presentation really got you, like kickstarted it for you.
Yeah, we did a presentation yes?
Friday.
Oh, Friday. Yeah, today's Sunday. Well, it's not all there.
Do you think the creatine's helping?
Well, I haven't started the creatine.
Oh.
I've only started the
magnesium.
The magnesium. And actually, I feel like the magnesium there. The first day that I was taking the magnesium, I had this headache that, like, I could only measure it against the time that I was in the hospital, and my brain was losing fluid, and there was this headache that felt like sledgehammers hitting me in the head. That day that I started, it felt like that, a headache like that. But then afterwards, and just to give you a reference, the presentation that we did on Friday, I had been practicing it over and over. And that was a challenge. When I would practice it over and over, I would have like the recordings, I would just freeze up, and like that would happen. What would happen is I forget what I'm talking about, the context, like I'm just floating in space, like, what is this? What am I doing? And then I have to kind of remind myself and try to find the grounding back. That day I was having that headache, I was also practicing. So it was like almost like Navy SEAL level training of like for my brain. I was exhausted that night. I slept very well for the first time in a bit, but I think that also helped. And then the presentation, the positive emotional context,
the physiology behind that,
yeah, also helped.
So just to give context to the audience, you want to tell a little bit about your story?
Hold on, that's next podcast.
I feel like we're already transitioning.
We gotta have an outro. We gotta have an outro. God, there has to be some structure. God damn it! What the fuck? How am I the one who being like, let's structure this a little bit, guys? That was the end of our last podcast. Before this guy wants to fucking jump ahead. Jesus Christ, we're doing 2 episodes today, maybe 3. Who fucking knows? As long as Tin Man over here can keep up. Sorry, I love you.
So I felt like you missed the opportunity to talk about batteries running out and stuff like
I know, but I'm going to save that for the traumatic one that we're going to talk about now. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and find us on all digital platforms that you could find a podcast on. And don't forget to comment. I say this all the time. I love my mom. She can't be the only one commenting on our shit. I talk about it with her in person. I talk about it in the comment section. Guys, please let us know what you like, what you don't like. Even if you shit on one of us, any of the critiques that you have for us that you've told one of us, say it in the comments.
Yeah, that's a key factor. Is you have something to say to me or to Jay or to Moses, please don't DM us. Yeah. Don't send us text messages or any of that. Like, do it in the comment of the video that you're talking about.
I mean, you can DM us, but just like try to help the algorithm a little bit. You know,
just
like
double send it. Copy what you said in the comment, and then send it in my DM so I can read it and go, oh wait, you did this here. I'll answer here.
Actually, you want to know what? I think it's really great that I did the transition because that's like a preview to the next podcast.
It is. Look at that. Look. You know what? That was good. Moody Moe had a good point.
So now you guys. You got a little bit of the next podcast. Make sure you tune in.
Tune in. We're going to talk about his head trauma.
Actually, that was great.
Jason here with Mindset U, and I just want to thank y'all from the bottom of my heart for tuning in and watching us every week. Since Mindset U is taking a different approach, we need your help coming up with new topics of stuff that you want to hear so that we can give you the best quality possible and the best content possible in general. It's fun. Come on, help us out. Help us help you. Anyway, you can head over to VidaProject.com to watch any of the old episodes and any of the new upcoming episodes that are coming. You could also check us out on Instagram and on YouTube and anywhere else that you could possibly think of that you want us to be. Let us know. We'll be there. All right? Thank you so much. I think we're on Twitter. I don't know. Hit us up everywhere. Call me. Here's my number, 201. I'm just kidding. I hate being on camera. Fuck you in the butt. I keep saying, guys. Fucking trick myself out in the streets. I think that's a good take. Listen here, you little motherfuckers. And I'm gonna start over one more time, or else I'm gonna put my head in the oven. Before I was really interrupted by a lovely Dominican lady, and I'm doing everything in my power not to jump through this window right now because I hate talking in front of a camera. Take 15. Fuck you.